Okay, now we turn to high-performance economy hatchbacks. Last fall, we mentioned that buyer interest in mini hatchback performance cars is growing rapidly. These so-called hot hatchbacks give buyers a lot of bang for the buck. They also give manufacturers a big profit. After all, these cars were originally designed to be nothing more than cheap transportation. And since we enjoy a good bout about as well as anyone, we thought it was time to see how well these hot new wave commuters match up. So, in early April, we corralled 5 front-drive hatchbacks to find out which one was the champ. We wanted them to square off against each other in both tightly controlled competition and on highways. Oddly enough, while hot hatchback designs are mostly imported, 3 of our 5 carry Made in the USA labels. Representing the brand that started the trend, the $12,227 Volkswagen GTI. Power has been bumped up by 16 valves to a total of 123 horsepower and 120 pound-feet of torque. That makes this 1.8-liter engine the strongest in our group. Though the GTI is assembled in Pennsylvania, its seating position is still very German, with great support and plenty of head and leg room. There's a tilt adjustment and a clear view of the road. The only Detroit design that fits the hot hatchback theme is from Ford, the $8,860 Escort GT. It has the largest, if least sophisticated, engine of the lot. With 1.9 liters and port fuel injection, it makes 108 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque. Output is low for its displacement, but there are only 8 valves here and no turbo. The European flavor of the GT is obvious in its interior. Seats are firm with good support, but they are positioned a bit low for drivers of average height. Toyota's $10,668 Corolla FX-16 is made in California, but it's one of 3 Japanese designs in the field. The FX-16 also sports 16 valves on its 1.6-liter motor. It turns out 108 horsepower and only 96 pound-feet of torque. The seating position gives up nothing to its competition, however, with the most comfortable buckets in the test. The FX-16 is joined by the Mitsubishi-made Dodge Colt. It has the lowest base price, $8,400, and it's the only turbocharged car in our test. With 1.6 liters, horsepower is only rated at 105, the field's lowest. But turbos can provide good torque, and at 123, the Colt had the group's highest. The Colt is also the smallest and lightest car here, but its interior is roomy. Seats have good support, and with variable height and lumbar controls, they're the most adjustable. And then there's the car with a heritage that's all Honda, Acura's Integra. At $11,589, only the GTI costs more. Its engine, however, is also the most sophisticated, with 16 valves atop a port-injected 1.6-liter all-aluminum block. Horsepower is at a respectable 113, but total torque is quite low at only 99. You also sit low and reclined in the Integra, and since the windshield is steeply raked, the driving position is the most race car-like. Seat support is good, but adjustments are few. And indeed, on the track, the Integra zipped through the cones like a little slot car. It was the fastest and surest. Steering feel is excellent, and so is rear-wheel tracking. This car makes you feel like a better driver than you are. As for sheer speed, however, it was another story. The Integra's best 0 to 60 time was 9.8 seconds. It finished the quarter mile in 17.5 seconds at 77 miles per hour. Limited top-end torque made the Integra the second slowest. The VW GTI trailed the Acura in slalom handling numbers and driver impressions, but not by much. There is some inside rear wheel lift, but the car's transition from mild plow to oversteer is gradual and easy to control. Its tires held a firm grip, and mid-range power was abundant through both our high and low-speed slalom runs. But lay into the GTI's throttle and the cares of the world blow away. It was easily the fastest from 0 to 60 at 8.8 seconds, and it took second place in the quarter mile, finishing in 16.7 seconds at a speed of 81. The GTI shifter is also tops in precision. Third slalom handling honors went to the Escort GT. While it's the heaviest car in its class, it's still very agile. Steering is light and quick, and its tires provide good traction. The front end plows mildly throughout, and the Escort suspension feels like it could easily handle more power, which is where the Escort fell flat. With a 0 to 60 time of 11.7 seconds and quarter mile of 17.8 seconds at 76, it's the slowest car of the group by a wide margin. However, since this car was much slower than other Escort GTs we've driven, we think it had an unusually weak engine. The Dodge Colt Turbo couldn't keep up with the others in the slalom. The reason? Well, the high-performance tires that this car debuted with in 1985 have been exchanged for ones with better wet road abilities and longer tread life. While a plus for normal driving, it hurts here. But the Colt Turbo's saving grace is power. It was the second fastest car, going from 0 to 60 in 9 seconds, and it was the quickest to the quarter mile, 16.6 seconds at 81 miles per hour. And that brings us to the Toyota Corolla FX-16. This car did not handle nearly as well as the FX-16 we tested last fall. We can't explain why, but the tossable nature and good cornering power were gone. The FX-16 was prone to rear-end breakaway and was most unforgiving. It was our least favorite handling car. It did, however, redeem itself somewhat when going in a straight line. It finished in the middle of the group with a 0 to 60 time of 9.8 seconds and quarter mile time of 17.3 seconds at 78, nearly identical to our first FX-16's results. Now we complete the challenge with a real-world trek. After a lot of arguing over results at our favorite luncheon repose, it was time to see the true nature of these cars on the open road. And while we were at it, we thought we'd take in some of the sights. Spring was late in coming to the Mid-Atlantic states this year, but that didn't stop us. We mapped out a twisting 300-mile route through the foothills of Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia. We drove south through a constant drizzle to just blooming Sugarloaf Mountain. The sloppy road abilities and ride comfort of each car emerged. The two cars that had the poorest showing in our handling test were proving to be the most enjoyable to drive hour after hour. The Dodge Colt took tight mountain turns without pause and was easily the most maneuverable in towns. The Toyota Corolla FX-16, on the other hand, had the smoothest ride and produced the least fatigue. We moved on through the small Maryland towns of Comus and Poolesville and crossed the swollen Potomac River at historic White's Ferry, one of the oldest continuously operated ferries in the nation. By the time we got to Virginia, some drivers were jockeying for the more comfortable cars. The Ford Escort was a general favorite, despite its tall gearing and a buzzy engine. We changed drivers again at an overlook of the Shenandoah River Valley, and then headed across the gap to some familiar roads in West Virginia. The VW GTI, while extremely stable on wet roads, did roll a lot in turns, and its loud engine and tires made it less enjoyable than we'd like. A different problem haunted the Acura Integra. Its front torsion bar suspension constantly bottomed out on rough roads, and it was generally the least comfortable long-trip car of the lot. So by the time we pulled into the driveway of the Hilltop House at Harper's Ferry, the results of our jaunt were all but decided. The Patriarch hot hatchback Volkswagen GTI is still tops overall with us, even with its less than ideal ride characteristics. The Acura Integra took second place, also despite its ride problem. Although if you must drive lots of bumpy road, you may want to take a look at our third and fourth choices. The Toyota Corolla FX-16 was tops in comfort and reasonably fast, even if it did handle poorly on our closed course. The Ford Escort did better with cones, but was much too slow, and those who found a good seating position loved it on the open road. Although last, the Mitsubishi-made Dodge Colt is the hottest city car. Its strong engine and low price make it the bargain in the hot hatchbacks class. So there you have it. 5 fiery three-doors that prove you can get a lot more out of a little car than you might think.